Let's speak to Marco Forgione, who's Director General at the Institute of Export and International Trade. Thanks for coming on the programme. Now, what does this all mean for businesses, other than an awful lot of extra paperwork?
So, Juliet, you're quite right. The businesses trading from the EU into the UK are now going to face having to submit new documents that they had to do since the beginning of January. And as of today, the potential for their goods, particularly products of animal origin, you highlighted meats and sausages and cheeses and oils and plants, will now also be subject to physical checks. And that there are fees that are going to be liable that they'll have to pay now for those movements. So what we're seeing in the conversations we've had with EU businesses trading into the UK is that because the information from the government has been very late getting to them, that there's been a lot of concern and doubt as to how the system is going to operate, that many of them may actually hold or postpone trading with the UK, and those that do continue will have to pass on to consumers the costs of the transportation.
I wanted to ask you about that, because you talk about these fees and not knowing how things are going to work. But let's talk about how much it's going to cost. You know, what about consumers? How much more is expensive is everything from Europe about to get?
Well, unfortunately, there still remains some doubt about that, because the government hasn't really provided all the information that businesses need in order to assess those costs. However, we've been speaking with one provider in Poland who moves sausages and chickens from Poland into the UK, and they estimate that over the course of the next year it's going to cost them an additional between £1 million and £1.5 million, and those are costs that are going to flow straight down to the consumer. That doesn't include, of course, the potential for disruption and delay. And when you're talking about food supply chains, which are highly integrated supply chains and where minutes and hours matter, we could see actually whole loads being lost or spoiled because of delays.
You mentioned that the British government seems to have left crucial details to the very last minute. I mean, it doesn't look good, does it, in terms of what the EU might be thinking of what the UK is doing here?
Well, there are two elements. The first is the changes that the government is making are hugely positive. You know, taking a risk-based approach to managing the border, to being digital first, in the long term are going to pay dividends. The problem is the way it's being implemented. And we've had ongoing conversations both with the UK government and with businesses in the EU. And we have a real fear, actually, that a lot of MSME, micro, small and medium enterprises, particularly in the EU, are just going to think it's too complicated, there's a lack of clarity, there's too much uncertainty, and they will pause or halt their trading into the UK. And that at a time when the NFU, the National Farmers Union, has announced that the UK harvest is going to be a very poor one this year because of the weather. And so we in the UK are going to be even more dependent on imported food.
Marco Forgione, thank you very much.